All right. Hey, everybody. We are on the Successful Coach podcast. I'm here with Cara Lyn Giovanniello. She's a coaching powerhouse focusing on performance and emotional intelligence as foundations for vertical leadership. As an ICF certified Pcc and Cpcc. Cara Lyn, you're going to have to explain those to us here in a minute. Cara Lyn serves a healthy plate of coaching perspective in her work with individuals and corporations, inspiring outrageous growth mindsets and exploring what's past the glass ceilings when you get off a sticky floor. I love that description. It's dirty. It's real. It's kind of gross.
I feel like that's the way to describe a lot of things in life these days. So I appreciate that summary.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you very much for having me today. I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us. So ICF is International Coaching Foundation. Is that right?
Federation. Yeah. It sounds very enterprise. I feel like we should have a badge, but yes.
You get like a badge and a cape.
Yeah, I would love a cape. I think more so than the badge, but it's a good certification to have. There's probably some conversation that I'm sure many other coaches have had about the difference between a certified coach and just a person who wants to call themselves a coach. So I do appreciate the standards and ethics that the ICF puts out there in the world. So shout out to them.
Love it. And what's the PCC and CPCC?
Sure. It's certified professional coach, professional certified coach. One is through the school that I was certified in, which is the Coactive Institute. And the other one, which is the PCC, is the official delineation for coaches that have gone through a more executive level of coaching certification. So the one that's above that is the Master Certified Coach and MCC, and people that are just joining the coaching profession get an ACC. And so that's another way to kind of just know the level that your coach may be at in terms of hours that they have under their belts and, the processes that they've really tried to go through to level up their own coaching. Acronyms.
Love it. When we first spoke on our chemistry call before we recorded this, I think one of the first things you told me is that you're not big on bullshit. And you said it like that without any censorship. And I, for one, appreciate that. Can you tell me more about that? Why no bullshit? Why does that, what's kind of behind that? I feel like that's important to you.
Very much so. And I appreciate that we're just cursing right off the bat. That makes me feel very comfortable in this environment. So thank you. I feel that I have to start out with a no bullshit rule because for two reasons. I think people don't understand what coaching is. And so sometimes it feels like a support structure in its entirety. And I think a lot about coaching is support and being able to call out when a person is living in a pattern, a habit, a ritual that's not working for them. And unless you say, I call shenanigans, I call bullshit, kind of snap somebody to the reality that they're living in something that's not working. That tends to be the real jump in your face act that some people need to hear to kind of shake them a little bit. The other piece is you're paying me a lot of money and you're using a lot of time. So I don't want to waste either of those by sort of fluffing the fan, if you will. I want to make sure that you know that I'm here for your progress, for your growth, for your leadership development. That's what I'm selling to you. That's what you're going to take away from this. So if I go in saying, let's make an agreement, a designed alliance, no bullshit from either of us. You don't give it to me and I'm not going to give it to you. And that way we can set up that expectation really early in the, relationship that says, I actually want something for this. I actually want to change who I am and maybe develop in these areas or grow in areas I don't even know. And I accept that agreement and say, I will get you there without doing anything that feels false or just sort of generically supportive. That's not my style at all.
I love it. I love that. So are you, in terms of coaching style, then, are you a pretty hard driving coach? Do you adjust that approach for different clients, for example? If you've got a client that maybe needs a softer touch, do you adjust your approach based on that? I mean, you can still be honest with someone, or are you more of a kind of hard driving?
It's a great question. I actually get asked this a lot. That one and are you from the East Coast? Those tend to go, very closely together. And I'm a California girl, so the answer is no to that last one. But of course, you have to change your way of being with each client. And when you start out saying no bullshit, it sounds very aggressive. It sounds very in your face. And yet it's just a concept that says, I will not lie to you to make you feel better. So there are many clients, sometimes the more executive client, they often need a softer touch in times because there is a lot of saboteur and a lot of doubt the higher that you get in a level, the higher that you get in a company. And so a lot of times someone has to hear something from a softer tone of, I have no stake in this game. I'm not trying to get your job. I'm not trying to do anything that, a lot of people have that doubt, that self-awareness that maybe something is not as transparent as they would like it to be. And so how you gauge your way of being with a client is really mirroring. I know that they've talked a lot about this on this podcast, but you do need to be where your client is. You do need to dance in the moment. And so absolutely, if someone's coming in and they're not ready to just, go full out, 100%, I'm getting rid of everything. I'm starting everything new rituals, new habits, everything's fresh. That very rarely happens, but sometimes it does. You will need to talk to people in a way that gets them to see their life or their situation from a different perspective to the one that they're holding. So you have to be all kinds of things. It's kind of like acting, but it's more so just mirroring what that other person is giving so that you can do it in a way that they can hear you best.
Nice. Oh, that makes sense. And then tell us about emotional quotient. That's your big thing, right? Is EQ and kind of, understanding yourself. Tell us a little bit about your kind of take on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Being in a position where you study leadership for a very long time, it's interesting to see how the trend of knowing self has really blossomed in leadership vocabulary, in terminology, and in methodology. And so before it was, be directive, get shit done, make sure that people are following you, be fearful, they should have a little fear. And now people are coming to their own development, their own leadership. And I sort of classify myself as having leadership for everyone, which is about choice. It's about self-awareness, and it's about using those in order to create confidence and connection and commitment. Mm-hmm. And so to really level a person out in any category that they come to a coach and or just want to have, some discussion about how to better themselves, they have to understand their values. They have to understand their purpose. It's those pieces of knowing who you are that really help to develop who you want to be. But again, it comes back to that no bullshit rule, which is if somebody has values that they're saying that are theirs and are not, they're not living in their purpose. And therefore that feels inauthentic. And we're very sensory beings as humans. And I think that we have a level, whether we acknowledge it or not, that we know when someone's not being their authentic self. And authentic self is another, catchphrase that's out there right now, but it's real and it's important because we have, now we're just using bullshit again and again, but we have bullshit meters. And when we feel like somebody is selling us something that's really reading high on the bullshit meter, we're going to disconnect from them, whether we like it or not. Our unconscious self is going to try to protect us. And so they're going to say, this person is not trustworthy, so don't trust them. So when you talk about having emotional intelligence and really building up that quotient, what you're trying to do is say to a person, if you make the choice to really look at yourself, to really assess how you feel and how you react and what triggers you may have and how to be ahead of those so that you can be fairly neutral in any situation when you're information gathering, which I think is such an important part when you're listening, when you're getting that data, then how you choose to respond with that information is an open choice. It's not a reaction. It's not that amygdala hijack that we worry about. It's saying, I understand the data provided to me, whether that's emotional data or, financial data. As I work in fintech, that's very important. But also, what then do I want to do with that data that will both help me, help this other person, help the problem, help the business, and giving people that empowerment that it's almost to slow down. A lot of people need a lot of slowing down in order to really see how they are when something arises. And that can come from so many different ways of mindfulness. Again, another one of those words that is so important and yet everybody's using it. But if you aren't mindful in the present as to what you're doing, you will not be able to build that emotional understanding. And if you don't know how you are at an emotional level, you will never be able to graduate to a higher level of decision making or leadership agility or entrepreneurial mindset, because you are stuck in a way because of your own making. That was a lot. I hope people took out a notepad for that one.
I'm sure everyone's taking notes. Okay. Yeah. There's a few things to unpack there, I think. You mentioned two things that caught my ear: authentic self and mindfulness, right? These are both tropes almost at this point, right? In 2021, yep. Everyone says it, everyone uses it. But trope or not, they are important for the reasons you stated. Why do you think people are inauthentic? I mean, certainly it's not purposeful, right? But why? Talk a little bit about why, when you work with people, if they're being inauthentic to themselves, if they're not able to sit comfortably with, their own feelings on something, why do they block that stuff out? Why, when a bullshit meter, rings really high and really loudly, what are some of the reasons behind that? And how do you work with someone to overcome that? There might be a few different questions there.
Very few different questions. I actually would want to turn this around and ask you if I could ask you a question. Are we
Absolutely
open to
not.
That? Okay.
Of course you can. Go ahead.
Okay, I was like, okay, well, Michael, we're going to have to talk here. So think about the last time that you felt that you were showing up inauthentically. Like, go through your mental Rolodex, find a situation.
Okay.
What was the cause? What was the instigator that caused you to feel like you had to show up differently than you would normally or authentically?
So probably, I mean, at the surface level, I would say it was an issue of saving face. So, if you dig a little deeper, maybe fear of being discovered, right? Something like that.
That's a big one. I would say, if we're talking about reasons that someone would consciously or unconsciously, a lot of times it's unconscious. And so we want to just address the fact that most people don't know that they're being authentic, because again, that's a trigger in authenticity. And that is a lot of times because we have been taught, especially in Western cultures, about being perfect. And being perfect means having all the answers right away, being able to fix a problem immediately, being able to be calm and cool in the face of adversity and change. Huge expectations that hopefully we start to realize it's not possible to be at that level for forever. But we are still taught from little children, primarily, that you have to sit and be good, that you have to know how to behave, that you have to know how to solve something, that if you ask a question and it's stupid, someone's going to shame you for it. So from very early age, are we built to try and hide ourselves because it's not this level that we've created now in social media, in our media markets, in ways that say, again, this very old school traditional model of leadership. In order to be a leader, you have to be the best. And I challenge that because I think that everything is a growing process. And so if somebody is feeling like they are inauthentic, or let's say they're not even feeling that they're inauthentic, but if I'm hearing on my meter that someone is absolutely saying what is the right thing to say, and there's no connection of their purpose or their values to that, I will remind them that there is probably a story that they were told very early in their life in order to rectify a way of their being. Don't do this. I see you doing that, so don't do that anymore. And this is because of this. And so then that person keeps telling themselves that story year after year, again and again and again. And you may find 40 years have passed and they've told themselves the same story. And even though they believe that story, it's not actually based in truth. And so you have to, you talk about how to be gentle. When you're popping someone's, 3-decade, 2-decade long bubble of belief, you have to be extremely gentle. And we are breaking belief that says it's okay to be as you are, especially if you know that and can make progress in how you would like that to show up in the world. I want to make a change. I don't like this about myself. I love this about myself. I want to make it even stronger, and I want people to sense it the moment that they meet me. But you really are having to shake a system. There's something very institutionalized about feeling like we must be perfect. And therefore, if we show up authentically and we are not perfect, we will be shamed and we will be asked to leave. And that's mortifying. And so we don't do it. And I think what I'm loving seeing in business and in leadership now is that we are changing that belief system. We are actually saying in, the companies that I work with, we don't expect you to be perfect. What's even better is saying what you do not know and then teaching it to yourself and teaching us how you could teach another person that. Because learning a skill, especially as an adult, that's very challenging. And so to teach yourself something, remember, you teach somebody else, you're going to get that concept so much stronger. Yep. And so we're breaking bubbles. I'm trying to answer all the questions here. We're breaking bubbles. We're trying to retell our own stories. We're reminding people that being authentic is actually more digestible and trustworthy than that inauthenticity, and that it's okay to be afraid of the unknown, but the unknown is actually our reality. Change is ever present, especially as the years keep ticking on. And we want people to be comfortable with that, because that's about leadership agility. That's about being a human that can pivot when the world is pivoting around them and saying, I don't have the answer to everything. Is that okay? And someone else saying, absolutely. What can we do from here now that we know that?
Yeah, I've found, just as a personal anecdote, I suppose, I've found that when I go to my team at Boxer with, pretending like I've got all the answers, shit just doesn't work out that well, right? And then when I go to them and I'm like, here's the situation. Here's my idea. What do you guys think? You guys are the professionals. You guys are the really good ones at this. Like, tell me what you think, because I don't have all the answers. That's when I've found, at least, that things work out better. You get to better outcomes that way, and you get there faster. When you're especially as a leader, if you allow yourself to be vulnerable and to not have all the answers, it's not easy to do. It certainly doesn't come naturally, right? And it's that naturally that we're sort of addressing, is where did that natural place of having to know all the answers come from? From a story that we used to tell people a long time ago. And what I heard from yours that I just want to highlight is having a coaching mindset is empowering others. And when you talk about leadership, one of the pieces to being a great leader, regardless of, again, I'm not talking about someone who has the title or the salary, any person that chooses to be a leader. It's that they are developing others. And in developing others, it's saying, I have the answer, but I'd love to know what you think. I don't have the answer. I'd love to know what you think. Can we be collaborative about this so that I can hear how you process things? Again, what's your perspective of solving this problem, or even looking at this problem, which will eventually change the way that you look at issues, the way that you confront challenges. And so if you have that growth mindset that says, I don't know everything, and the more that I'm curious about how other people break something down to rebuild it, the more I'm going to be developing myself. And it's this beautiful cycle. If we talk about holistic cycles, there is no better cycle than going in and going, I don't know, you teach me. Oh, you taught me, now I'm going to teach you back. Oh, someone else is going to. And it's very inclusive. That's another word that we obviously need to be talking about in every conversation, how to make things inclusive, how to get diverse thought, belief systems involved in every conversation, because I say this to a lot of leaders, unfortunately, you do not house all the right ideas and best ideas and most ingenious thoughts ever. Sorry to break that bubble for you, but somebody else may blow your mind if you give them the opportunity to tell you. And so a piece to that, I just want to say that's really hard for a lot of people is being quiet. So in that situation that you gave, if you said, I'd love to know what my team thinks, you know what, never mind. I feel like I'm just going to tell you, you just keep going. Maybe that's nerves, or that's just, again, that model of leadership where you have to say the answers, but it's to ask and then to just sit and wait and be comfortable in that. Let people process, let people have the time to
think about the curious question that you just gave them. They're going to have to be curious and spend some time working through that to answer it properly. So it's that silence. It's real money in that silence. And I always challenge and encourage people to be comfortable in silence, even though, again, that's one of those awkward ones where silence is so awkward.
Unnatural. Yeah, it's not easy to do. Totally. There's a book you may have read, maybe you haven't, by Michael Bungay Stanier called The Coaching Habit. Are you familiar with that one?
I mean, I read it a long time ago, but I definitely have that in my repertoire.
Yep. And that's one where he talks a lot about asking strategic questions and then pulling back and letting the silence be awkward, letting the silence get awkward, and letting them talk and work through their thoughts on their own without succumbing to, a bad leadership habit of injecting at all times. So.
We do a lot of teaching, less about the word strategic questions, although now that you've reminded me of that, I'm like, I think people would really gravitate that more. I call them powerful questions. Sure. And I remind people, that the shorter that they are, 4 to 7 words, that's the money length that you would want to keep a question. Because again, once you get past that, you're starting to lead a little bit. And again, everybody wants to mentor. It's very hard to coach. The other
so many words in the question, you're adding little modifiers here and there and kind of bending the question in a certain direction, perhaps.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to go, because I know that you're kind of a marketing guru. How you phrase something is very important. So if you keep it very open-ended, you allow somebody to imagine inside the gaps that you've purposely left for them. Yeah. But if you give them every little detail, whether subtly or very, in their face, there's nothing for them to dream about or to think about. You're selling them and they're ingesting it. And again, you talked about earlier, why do people feel inauthentic? And I think it's because we're just digesting a lot of things that don't inspire our own creativity or innovation or self-awareness, because they're telling us exactly how we need to look, exactly how we need to feel, exactly how we need to behave. And we are breaking that model, which is great, but also it's been, institutionalized in everything for so long that, again, having that silence, having a short question, letting somebody fill in those gaps is so important. And, for your job, for my job, for people in this profession, that's something that I think we're all advocating for, is bringing back the person to society.
I love it. I love that. Yeah. For, on the topic of short questions, one of my personal favorite ones is just why. And doing that like 4 levels deep, because there's always like a surface level why and one underneath that, and you peel that onion out. I do that with journaling sometimes, where I'll, be working on myself in some way and ask the question why a few times until I get to the real problem, which is, it's a good one.
Yeah, that's a problem solving strategy, which they use a lot, which is the 5 whys. So you give a thing, you ask why. Somebody gives you a whole nother thing, you ask why. And if you can not get to the answer in 5 whys, probably you didn't have the right question at the beginning. So go back and maybe rephrase it and then try those 5 whys again. But for anybody that's listening, it's a great tool for yourself to work with your teams to just try and get from the surface, either question or problem or issue, down to something that's more at the root. And I love talking about things that are at the root, because I really love nature. And I think you can't grow if you don't have those roots. And so I like to bring that metaphor into everything. But getting to the root, that's the no BS quality that I'm talking about. Just seeing what is, and then doing what you want to with that knowledge.
I like it. So, being a marketing guy myself, I've got I'm curious to know, your coaching is very much focused on EQ and kind of soft skills, right? Working with people as leadership soft skills. How do you position that? How do you market yourself and position yourself to get new clients? Because there's a lot of coaches, I'm sure, that are listening to this that are wondering the same thing. Like, I'm connecting with what's being said here. And I'm curious how For beginner coaches, for example, how would you recommend that they approach something like positioning in the marketplace for something like this? Because it's soft skills, right? So it's not necessarily quantifiable.
Mm-hmm. That is a really good question. And I say that because I struggled with that for many years in my coaching practice, which is it's hard to get your niche. And I think that's the word that every coach that's a beginning coach really despises and fears and tries to walk away from, because you want to coach everybody. You want to, I can do it, moms and lawyers and doctors and marketing and business. You just want to have that plateau because you're excited and you're learning this new skill, and you probably could. The problem is in marketing is that if you say, I do everything, I'm an everyman, nobody actually wants the everyman. They want a person that is very specific in their way of getting results. So in my case, I work in the leadership forum, which is to say, any person that believes that they can level up their presence in the world. That could be their physical presence, their emotional presence, their mental agility, their motivational capacity. That presence, if there is a need to develop it, those are those key words. I'm the coach that you want to go to because I have skills and techniques that I have borrowed from other coaches, that I have read about, and that I've created on my own that will get you to X place. And normally they feed you the place. This is where I want to go. Mm-hmm. I like to work a problem backwards. Sure. So if somebody says to me, this is where I want to have, this is my landing page, I say, wonderful. How do we get there in 6 months from now? How do we get there in 3 months from now? How do we get there in a week? A lot of times people think that
people want to know what they can do tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. I mean, that's the most fun is when you meet a coach that says, oh, what could I do in 10 years? What could you do? I get you there at the end of the year. And really, it's that self-belief system, which someone says, no, that's impossible. Why? There's Michael's question. Why?
Yeah. I won't take that question.
Yeah, just take ownership of that one. But you just keep digging down and you just find, again, what's below, which is normally a belief system, which you're cracking. And so for those new coaches that are coming in, it's really important to find both what really matters to you in talking about the human energy system. What about working with people inspires you, drives you, makes you feel purpose? And the other piece is, does it align with if you're, bringing coaching into the work that you are doing, how can you get a coaching mindset to align with educators or stay-at-home parents or, working moms? I mean, I know a lot of great coaches that are coaches for working moms. What a specific niche. And they market to that niche so people know exactly who to go to. And I would just encourage people, even if it feels like you're cutting yourself off at the legs, give it time to blossom where you are just saying that message over and over and over again. It is the same message. It's in all your branding. It's in all your social media. It's in the conversations that you have with people. It's when you speak, you are saying the same message with all that passion and all that authority. And then suddenly people will go, oh, I know a leadership coach. Oh, yeah, I saw this. Oh, I know a person. And suddenly you're getting business because you're the leadership coach. You're the human energy system coach. You're the EQ leadership coach, whatever it is that the brand that you want to have. And mine is, of course, soft skills leadership. So I go in and I say, I want you to develop an emotional quota that is far larger than you have now, and we'll get you there. And then getting you there, we're going to get you that promotion. We're going to get you, your own company. We're going to get you the seven-figure salary, whatever it is that they want. We want to get them there. And so repeating that message, becoming that brand is probably the most important thing that you can do. And I turn to you. Would you agree? Is that what you've seen in your business?
I think I'm going to look in the camera and tell everybody who is listening to this, rewind 5 minutes and watch it again. That was golden. It's perfect. And you're absolutely, and the one thing that there's a number of things that you said that resonated with me, but the one thing I want to circle back to is even if it feels like you're cutting yourself off at the legs, because it does feel like that. It will feel like that. And it's not just for coaches, frankly, it's for any entrepreneur. Yep. Entrepreneurs always feel like that when they niche down. And what happens is it feels like you're blocking out all of this potential business.
Mhm.
But the fact of the matter is that when you put those horse blinders on and you focus on X or Y, not X and Y, pick one. When you focus on one thing, you are able to build a marketing machine where your prospects feel like your communications and your messaging is speaking directly to them.
Yeah.
And it becomes, it's obviously not one-to-one, but it feels like that, because when they read your marketing message, it feels like you're speaking directly to them, and it hits home much harder, and it picks up on that emotional part of the brain. People think that buying something or purchasing, making a sale is a logical decision. It's not at all. It's 100% emotional. And if you can create that emotional connection and bridge then from emotion into logic, and give people like the logic and the quantifiable reasons to buy are more, what people will choose to buy something with emotions, and then they'll look for reasons to back up that decision. And that's where the logic comes in. And it's kind of a two-step process. But what you're talking about with niching down really allows you, in my experience, to just speak directly to a specific archetype, right? A specific prospect of a specific client. So again, if you're watching this and you're a new coach and you're worried about getting new clients, new leads, you're worried about how to position yourself in the market because what you do may not be easily quantifiable, rewind 5 or 6 or 7 minutes and watch that again, because that was gold. Yeah, 100%.
And I just want to say 2 things to that. The statement pulls at your heartstrings. That's there for a reason. You do want to speak to someone, and again, talk about that inner core of themselves, speak directly to that. I love that. And the other piece is you're talking about managing your attention, not your time. And that's a concept I love talking to new coaches about, is if you really focus and manage your attention, this is to anybody, actually, as you said, it could be for any person. Manage your attention, manage where you put your energy, really, really streamline that process so that every single thing that you're giving, which, listen, 2020, 2021, our energy has been burned in so many other ways for survival. So we don't have this extra big bucket that we're carrying around of just available energy. I'm just going to use that. No way. So every single thing that you have to dedicate and devote your attention to, that becomes what is powerful. But if you're trying to do everything all the time, your energy is going to go to everything all the time. And it's going to be 1% here, 2% here, which does nothing. You need at least, 30 to 50% so that there's traction. So there's some grit in the ground and somebody starts to see progress when, the rubber meets the road. And that's another great, statement that we're saying. So heartstrings, rubber meets the road, but absolutely focus that attention and you will find success.
Yeah, I love it. More analogies.
says the coaching podcast.
Right. That's awesome. So, okay, I want to move on to something a little different. Cara Lyn, can you tell us a little bit about, why you started coaching? What got you into this?
I actually love this story because it is so true to who I am as a person. I was working in learning and development. I'm going to give you the long story because I love it. But I was working in learning and development for a very dysfunctional senior leadership team that was not communicating, that was not listening, was really detrimental to the teams that they were running, and people were leaving the company. Morale was really low. And they were sort of handing me this bucket of crap and saying, fix it with this Band-Aid that I give you. So it just so happened that they were having a particularly acrimonious meeting, and I legitimately, my mouth opened and I just started barfing out words. And what those words were stop, listen, you both have a very similar problem. You're not even seeing where you're meeting in the middle. It was sort of this summary of weeks and weeks of hearing these folks just yell at each other and not have any sort of ability to listen and learn and then grow from there. And, being young, I got up, I started writing at the whiteboard. I was feeling myself. I'm like, oh, they're not talking, so I must be making impact. After about 10 minutes of that, my boss, who happened to be in that meeting, he asked me to leave. He was like, thanks, Cara Lyn, you can go. And I about shat myself because I knew then I was going to be getting fired. You know, who steps up in a senior leadership meeting and just says all that. And then later in the day, he came to find me and he asked me straight up, he's like, have you ever thought about being a coach? And I 100% paused and I looked at him very seriously and I said, you know, I'm very good at sports. I just don't feel like I could actually coach another person to be good. It's just not my jam. And so, of course, he fully laughed at me in my face. And then he said, no, I'm talking about being a business coach. I'm talking about being like a life coach. And I'd never heard of that before. And when I asked him to tell me more, he said, it's basically a person who can read truth and speak it back in a way that is not going to alienate people, that is not going to put people in a defensive posture. And he said, so I'd really like to send you to, you know, an introduction to a coaching program. I really think that this is going to, you know, work for you and therefore work for us because we may need someone who can coach these senior leaders. So I went to the first class that CTI offers. I was there, I think it's a 3-day class. I think I was there for a day and I knew immediately that I had found that job, that profession, that way of being that completely spoke to who I am. I am verbose. I am attentive. I am interested. I am driven. I mean, ambition is one of those words that I associate with. And yet you can do that for yourself and for other people just by liking and being curious about human beings. And once I went through that program, you know, it picked up speed. Again, when you do something that you love, you know, people can tell and you become good at it. And again, I struggled with the niche thing. I wanted to help everyone because I'm an amazing coach. But again, I learned that wasn't going to, you know, feed my family and make sure that my business bloomed. So I took that suggestion and then I ran with it. And I just started in every single thing that I addressed or tried to teach or content that I was building. It was how to do it from an empowerment, authentic, transparent mindset. And it worked for me very successfully. And so hence why I'm here with you today is just to say, find something that you love. And for me, it was this category. And then figure out how you can do the job that you want to do more efficiently with greater connection to people. At the end of the day, everything that you do, even if you're working with machines, you're working with people who make those machines. And so you have to believe in the human capacity to develop, to grow, have empathy for others. And these are skills, honestly, I feel like we're maybe a little bit lacking here and there. And I want to just be a really big advocate. I'll use this as my platform right here. You know, start being curious about people, start being empathetic. You don't know a person's struggle. You don't know their successes. You never will. You can never be inside that other person, but believe that they are a human being in the same foundational way that you are, which means they have places that they feel successful. They have fears. They have, you know, emotions that they can't control. They have ways of being that has been fed to them versus created by them. And let a person try to develop and grow on their own with your support and kindness as much as that can be allowed. I'm not saying in all cases, you know, that's going to bring success, but in a lot of them, just being curious and kind, it will just bridge, you know, the farthest divides that you can imagine.
It sounds to me like you're talking about empathy a little bit.
100%.
Yeah. How does one cultivate empathy?
My immediate response is they have to take themselves out of the equation. And I think what is very challenging for people is the way that we make connection is to associate something with ourselves. So if you're telling me a story, I may be not even listening to you. I'm just sitting here going, oh yeah, Michael, great story. Oh yeah, I like that. But in my mind, I'm going, I did the same thing 10 years ago. I can't wait to tell him my story. Or, oh my God, he's doing it wrong. I cannot wait to tell him how to do it better. But we're associating everything that the other person is saying with our own experiences.
Through our lens of life. Yeah.
100%, because how else can we do it? So when we're talking about teaching empathy, about encouraging a person to develop a more empathetic lens, what I say to people is you have to remove yourself. And there's 3 levels of listening, 3 levels of understanding. The first one is I'm just hearing it from the perspective of what I need. The second one is I'm hearing it from the perspective of what you need. And that's where you're starting to get to that empathetic level. And the third one is I'm starting to get the perspective, the understanding of what we all need. So how does this feed into something greater than just, this specific problem? But you have to remove yourself. And that means really focusing on what the other person is saying. I often take notes. I saw that you're the same. When people are talking, I jot down things all the time so that I stay focused to what they have said that piqued my interest. Not because I like it or I want to tell a story, but because I'm curious why they said it. I'm interested in why they're interested in it. I want to know more about the way that they think about things. And if you can, it's mindfulness. I'm bringing that word back. If every time you go back to level 1, you just go up, I'm thinking about myself. I'm going to get right back to thinking about that person. You ask a powerful question and you lock it in with them. That's a skill set you have to practice. So empathy is not just something you wake up one day and you say, you know what, I'm going to be empathetic today. You know what, Michael? Today's the day. I'm going to become empathetic and I'm excited to do it. Today's the
Lucky
day.
You.
You may have to set a reminder on your phone that says, stop talking about yourself. I have a Post-it note. I Post-its everywhere. I love Post-it notes. Yep. Mine says, wait, why am I talking?
Yeah, I have a bunch of reminders on my phone. One of them is be empathetic. I have another one that says set your intentions, or what are your intentions, something like that. And it goes off once a day at a random interval throughout the day. And it's just a little reminder to not be a dick.
I mean, beautifully said. Yeah. And that's why all of those apps like Headspace and Calm and anything that's going to remind you periodically through the day to do something, that is how you build a habit. And I love talking about habits and rituals, because habit is something that you're doing to enforce an action. And once that habit is established, then you move into the ritual of why you do it, which is the reason behind it. So the purpose of me being more empathetic is so that I can connect with humans that I can influence better, I can negotiate better, I can navigate difficult situations better because I'm listening to the other person and building a solution, as we said earlier, that connects to them. They think I'm literally giving them the solution that's for them. When all I've done is just listen and sort of maybe even just bent a little what I came in to say, but bent it to the lens that they needed to see it through. And so that's my ritual, is wanting to connect with another person. In order to do that, I had to make a lot of habits that said, stop talking, listen, journal, meditate, whatever it was, because it's not something that we're ingrained to do. And I'll tell you, all these devices, I got, 6 things here. They're pinging and dinging all the time with be distracted. Yep. Don't connect. Look at something for 30 seconds and then do it again 60 times in the day. If you have one of those timers on your phone that tells you how long you look at certain things on your phone, if it says you're like on social media for 6 hours a day or something, I just want you to know, think about what that energy could be if you gave 6 hours a day to a mindfulness technique. Just saying, I don't encourage it because it's a smack in the face. We all have done it, but that's why having a phone and a device is super great for keeping you in the present of what you're trying to do. I would love to ask, what rituals do you have?
I have a morning routine that includes waking up between 4:30 and 5 a.m. I will take care of my dogs, feed them, take them out on a short walk, or just let them out in the backyard to go potty. I will make coffee, which I am not allowed to drink until after I meditate, do a visualization exercise, which is just kind of thinking about, we've all got some big goals, right? My wife and I just bought 26 acres in the Washington State Cascade Mountains where we're building an off-grid home.
Wow.
Super exciting. So my visualization these past 6 months or so have been very focused on that and building this new life out in the mountains. We're talking about having kids. We don't have any kids right now. So doing a visualization exercise, doing some journaling, and what else? And affirmations. I have affirmations as well that I read every day.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful to hear. And I think anybody that's listening, those are so many good steps that a person could easily infuse even just 1 or 2 of those into their daily schedule. The other one that I'll throw in is a lot of people do a gratitude journal, which at the end of every day, they write things about, we call them high lows in our family. So I have 2 kids. we sit around the table, and my way of trying to bring gratitude to a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old is to say, what was a high for you today? What was a low for you today? What was a way that you could have changed that low into a high? And so it's getting somebody to slow down and take a moment to express something, and then very slowly planting the seeds of, if you could have done that differently, your low, how would you have done that? And do you think that would have made you feel better, or made it, feel better for the other person, or whatever is the thing? Because it is something that we have to train, again, ourselves from. And so when you have kids, you start very early. No matter what anybody tells you, start way earlier than you think you need to. Because again, building empathy, it starts as a child, it starts as early as you possibly can. And so building intentions, setting intentions, expectations, gratitude, mindfulness. I know that people think that these words are overused. They're overused for the right reasons, because it's critical. It's critical to your development as a human being, and us as a planet of human beings. We're going to have to start learning to be more empathetic and show more gratitude to each other. Otherwise, it could go, it might not go as well as we hope. We'll leave it like that.
Yeah, I love the inclusion of the lows and the, I'll call it learning points. Like, what did you learn today? Like, what did you learn? How could you have made that better? What can you do to improve on that next time that situation arises? That's awesome. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'm going to start doing that.
And the thing that's interesting to me in hearing you say that, just how I talk to my kids, that's what I would tell a senior leader. Mm-hmm. What did you notice that worked today? What did you notice that didn't work today? How do you think you could have redone, if you could have had it any other way, if you took away X, Y, and Z? It's the same process of seeing what works and cementing that to your psyche. That worked, and I want to make sure I know why. That didn't work, and I wonder how I could restructure, reframe, readdress, rebuild. I mean, that's a lot. The words that come up for me, that's risk taking. That's being able to fail and be okay with that, because there's so much learning from failure. That's being an entrepreneur, because you are able to risk take, because you're not afraid of failure, because failure is what serves you success on a platter. I can't say that any more times. The more you fail, the stronger you're going to get, if you have enough self-awareness to look at where you could make changes. And so think about the innovators that you know in the world. There are people that don't take no for an answer. And by no, I mean, it didn't work, so I'm just going to stop. You say, okay, that didn't work, but some parts did. I'm going to take those some parts and I'm going to dress them up in a different way. It's success in a bottle. If I could package it and I could sell it, like I got a candle here. Would you like success in a candle? It's right here. And, just sell it to somebody like that, which is, don't be afraid of failure. Do you have that same candle?
Hold on.
This is when it gets fun, ladies and gentlemen.
When it gets weird.
And suddenly you realize, yep.
This is sold as a mandel.
Mm-hmm. That feels absolutely right.
The candle for men.
A success mandel. You and I just came up with our new business. I'm so excited. Can we copyright it immediately before everyone on this podcast is like, "Ooh, I'm going to do that too."
I'm in.
Awesome. Me too.
Oh, that's great. Cara Lyn, I want to be respectful of your time. I know we're coming up at the top of the hour for us here, but before we go, I want to ask you, give us one high from your career. What is, from your career as a coach, what is a big win that you've had? Tell us a little bit about that and how you navigated that situation or scenario, and how, what the outcome was like.
That is a wonderful question. I don't know that I've been asked that in a really long time. I think I have two, so I'll try to be very quick with both of them because they're both very impactful to me. One was at the beginning of my career, and I worked with a stay-at-home mom. And, again, that was when I was taking any client that I could. I think she was one of my first clients, a tremendous human being, who really did struggle with a lot of family issues, with a lot of self-confidence issues. And she trusted me enough to go there, even though, again, I had just gotten my certification. I honestly didn't really know what I was doing. It was sort of hit or miss. I was learning. And she was vulnerable enough with me. She had enough emotional courage to open herself to me so that I could practice, that I could give her these wild ideas or these wild thoughts that, sometimes it's very intuitive. Mm-hmm. And her life changed. That's not some sort of a, catchphrase there. Her life actually changed. And she became a different person that we both could see. It was, you talk about measuring data. It was measurable, the changes and the progress that she was making from this person who was wonderful before, but just became so empowered, so efficient, so understanding of herself that she no longer accepted bullshit, whether from herself or from others, and it changed her life. Now, that was right at the beginning of my career. I would say later in my career, it was getting somebody from I've made $2,000 doing this thing that I really love to I've made $125,000, in 6 months. And, right. Again, a person comes because you've spoken to their heartstring of saying, you want this thing so badly, you'll be willing to almost try anything. And again, managing that attention, we stick it in a very directive way so that they could get there. And if you can imagine a person just really honing that attention, instead of trying to do 6 things at once, I do one thing very well. And I do it in a way that builds each time. So you're creating this funnel. Every time you build something and you do it excellently, it's going to help the next project that you're going to do excellently and excellently and excellently and excellently. And that's how you can gravitate in just a little over 6 months from a 4-figure return to a 6-figure return. And, her business right now, I honestly, I don't know how much she's making, but I see her in a lot of places and I know that she is doing very, very well. And that to me was such a great success because they're doing it. And she comes back for coaching every once in a while, mostly just to realign a little bit values and purpose. But when you see a person managing their time and attention because they are so driven, they just need some parameters to stay within. And that person who says, nope, bullshit, don't do that. Nope, shenanigans, you're not looking at that. They will get to where they want to go. And I'm just going to close with this, which is say, the sky really is the limit. If you want something bad enough, if you're willing to try and to fail, you will get closer to that goal, to that dream, than just by saying it's too far away, it's too big for me, it's never going to happen for me. So sky's the limit, should you choose to have it.
Yeah. One thing I think I want to add to that is you were talking about, as you complete one thing, it's like a funnel. You complete one thing, it makes the next thing easier, and it makes the next thing easier. So I myself have 2 coaches, really. I've got a one-on-one coach, and then I'm part of a coaching group. I'm in a coaching group. I'm being coached as a group. But my coach calls that stacking wins. And yeah. for me personally, something that I struggle with is upper limiting. Very much so. And so one of my, constant assignments is to stack my wins. Anytime something, goes right, stack that win and watch the pile get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually I don't have to convince myself that I'm super successful anymore because here I am.
Yeah, it's all right there. That's 100%. And a lot of times that's what you have to do to chisel at someone who has such a strong inner critic that no matter what you've done, you're like, it's not good enough. It could always be better. Again, that perfectionist level. So if you have it there and you're like, well, I can't deny it, it's right here. There's literally from, a stack of books, and each book is a success that I've had. Okay, maybe I am awesome. Maybe I will, take a bigger chance because I think I'm actually pretty dope. Yes, you are. It's right here for you. So what a great
argue with it anymore.
Stacking limbs. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's that going back. It's that childhood narrative that everyone has in some form or another, and it's something we all struggle with. Certainly, something that I struggle with. But one more question for you: what was the big low from your career, and what did you learn from it?
It's a self-doubt.
Yeah,
I went through a period where I was moving into the niche, and I didn't want to do it, and I was fighting myself, and I was losing clients, and it was one of those where it's like you have a full platter of the most delicious food you ever wanted, and you just and the food keeps falling out. No. Oh God, I love that. That's my favorite. That's how it felt to me because I was just living in self-doubt. I wasn't managing my attention. I wasn't managing my time properly. I was trying to do too many things. I was trying to serve too many people. My energy for myself wasn't strong. And I definitely spent between 6 months and a year. I mean, it wasn't like a very short amount of time. It was a significant amount of time in my career where I just thought I was on the wrong path, that I was doing everything incorrectly. And it was a great coach that sat me down, and they called bullshit on my bullshit. And they said, you are so driven. You do have a vision. You have literally not set up your vision to work it backwards to get there. What you're trying to do is everything like throwing darts at a board, and you hope one hits. Absolutely don't do that. Find one thing and just practice it. And when I got that concept down and I let go of who I was letting go of by letting go of some things, that's when my energy changed. And with coaches, I will defer to you, as well to this. People sense your energy. And if your energy feels all over the place, it feels anxious, it feels not confident, again, somebody's not going to want to work with you or put trust in you because you don't have your business together. Yep. And so getting that clarity and slowing down, but that took me so long, and there was so much doubt and pain. And yet everything that I learned from that is why I feel like I can sit on a podcast like this, and why I do the work that I do, because I know that I can, and I believe in myself. And to have gone through such a low period in my career just reminds me of where I've come from. It's my books on the ground, and, I'm stacking limbs, and I know that I make progress. And so having had a really poor moment in my career is what has given me the incentive and the drive to just keep improving. I can always be improving, not perfectionist, but small tweaks. And that can always make something that feels great even better.
And yeah, I love that. I think you need, not you, Cara Lyn, but you, the proverbial you need some point of reference of what shit tastes like. So know how, what's sometimes pain is a much better motivator than the big goal or the dream.
Yep. A lot of times give somebody the consequence, let somebody know the pain of it. And that, again, you got to work with what connects to a person. In the end, right? That's emotional.
Sure.
I want to be successful. That's emotional. I just really messed up. That's emotional. Mm-hmm. And so regardless of the data that's at the surface, when you go right down to that root, that is about how a person feels about something. And if you can connect to that, you can remind them, do you want to feel like this anymore? No, then let's not. You want to feel like this again? Great. Let's repeat the process. It really is basic. You just have to have the right person guiding you.
I love it. Do you have a coach?
I do have a coach. I as well. I have a couple of coaches. I have a business coach, and I have a life coach. I also have had a therapist. I'm all about mental and emotional health. I think everybody should try something just to see what works. But the other thing that's wonderful about coaches is that everybody has a different style, right? So mine is the no BS. Let's get your EQ, top level. Let's learn about ourselves. There's other coaches, that completely generate different kinds of energy and belief systems that they're going to incorporate in you. And so trying different coaches, really, yes, you found one that you love and they work for you. Great. But it's like doing anything too much, right? It's going to lose its impact. So try something else. Maybe the shittiest coach you ever had. It's going to remind you why you loved this coach. Yeah. So broaden yourself. I think that that's just in general, experience things in your life. And then you will have a better base of understanding to say, I like this, I don't like this. And so I absolutely have my own coaches. And I sometimes I feel like I can't live without them. I'm an auditory processor. And so I just pay them to be quiet. And I just talk. It's wonderful.
Hilarious. Nice. Yeah, I think increase the breadth of your experience to increase the breadth of your perspective, right? Yep. And then you can approach problems from a more unique perspective because you've got more points of reference.
Absolutely.
Cara Lyn Giovanniello, did I pronounce that right?
Hey, nice job.
This has been wonderful. Where can our viewers, listeners, readers, where can they find you online?
Yes, and thank you for that plug. I am at clgcoaching.com. That is for confidence, leadership, and growth. It's also Cara Lyn Giovanniello, so hopefully that will connect very easily when you try to remember. But, when you want someone to power up your emotional intelligence for your leadership skills, please visit clgcoaching.com and we will work something that will be beneficial for you. Absolutely.
Awesome. clgcoaching.com, guys. You heard it here first. And,
.com. Thank you, Michael. It's been a pleasure.
Cara Lyn, this has been great, and I hope to talk to you soon. Cheers. Take care.
Absolutely. Take very good care.